How do you find your life's trauma and how do you heal through it? I'm going to break all of that down. It's a big topic. I'll show you how to do that right now in this podcast with me. So, if you don't know who I am, my name is Lewis. I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, I'm an author, and I love helping people find their life's purpose to create a life that they love with the inner work, self-mastery, work on yourself, but also do the inner work such as trauma, limiting beliefs, so you overcome those sabotaging patterns so you can create a life that you truly love, a life that inspires you. So with that being said, I'm going to rip straight into it. There's going to be a lot of content in this podcast. I've got a lot of layers to this. This will go a bit longer than my normal podcast because I just want to give you guys as much absolute value as I can. So with that being said, please strap in and let's rock and roll. So let's kick things off. I share this in most of my podcasts. I'm going to talk about trauma, coping mechanisms, and triggers. 3 things. So trauma, let's start with that. So trauma is a moment in time when something was too much or not enough. And it's going to be a trait or a behavior. So someone did something or didn't do something that was bad, wrong, shouldn't have happened, too much or not enough. And the goal is to find the one-word answer to say what that person did or did not do. I'll give you some examples. Rejection, abandonment, criticism, control, manipulation, rejection, I think I said that already, neglection, lying. There'll be things that people do or do not do. It's a trait or a behavior. And to be able to heal properly, the hardest part of inner work, once you know how to do it, the hardest part is actually finding what the trigger is. What is the trigger that got revealed in you so you can work on it? And I'm going to come back to that in a moment. So first is trauma. So it's a trait or a behavior. It's behaviors and traits that you think are bad, wrong, that were painful, that were too much or not enough in your life. And I'll give you an exercise later on so you can find yours. Second, coping mechanisms. This is what we do to overcome, protect, or hide the trauma. It could be people pleasing, dissociation, eating food, smoking a cigarette, addictions, I said people pleasing already, overworking. There'll be things that you do to overcome, protect, and hide the trauma. Third is a trigger. A trigger is something that reminds you of the trauma. So someone does something that reminds you of a trauma and it activates you into a coping mechanism. This is why I say all the time, nothing triggers you, it reveals what's inside of you. I hope that's landing for you. Nothing triggers you, it reveals what's inside of you. Now, a little disclaimer on that. As long as it's not real fight or flight. If you're actually in danger, you're going to die. Someone comes at you with a gun. Someone comes at you with a knife. You're driving your car and someone turns their car to be driving directly head on to you. How do you think you're going to feel? You're going to get triggered into fight or flight. That's normal. So as long as you're not really in fight or flight, when you quote get triggered, it's revealing something within you that you have not healed yet. That's the gift of a trigger. So the best way to find your triggers, I'm going to give you more specific examples in a moment. The best way to find your triggers or your trauma is just to become aware of when you get triggered. When someone triggers you into something, whether you get anxious, you get overwhelmed, you get stressed, you get fearful, you get depressed, you become a people pleaser, you disassociate, you get shy, you overcompensate, you get angry. That when you get triggered into certain patterns or behaviors, you got to figure out what did this person do or not do that triggered you into it. Once you find it, again, I'll give you some exercises soon, you'll start to link the dots. And I'll go into the exercise right now. So right now, I want you to think of someone that you don't like. It doesn't matter about the person. It could be a friend, could be a parent, could be a sibling, could be an ex-partner, could be a boss, a coworker. Does not matter. Think of someone you don't like. Bring that person to your mind. Now, in a one-word answer, what's the one thing you dislike most about this person? It will be a trait or a behavior. Something they did or didn't do. It will be a trait or a behavior. Once that word comes up, you can write in the comments if you want to get some feedback. I'll respond to your comments. So once you find that word that you came up with will be a trigger of yours. Because there'll be a moment in time in your life when someone, maybe it's this person or might be another person, where someone did this behavior or trait and it was painful for you. So it's a bad thing. So the goal is to use life, which is a mirror. You might have heard life's a mirror. It gets thrown a lot around in self-development, and it's absolutely true. Your perception of me is a projection of you, okay? Your perception of me is a projection of you. So the things that you dislike in people, just like the person just came to mind just then, whatever you dislike in them is a projection of who you are, or in other words, the parts of you haven't healed yet. You have not healed through those things that you're projecting onto people. The lying, the manipulating, the controlling, the dismissing, the invalidating, whatever those words are. They are the mirror reflecting back to you the parts of you have not worked on yet. Sorry, just lost my voice for 2 seconds. They're reflecting back to you the parts of you have not worked on yet. That's the gift of a mirror. Wayne Dyer has this amazing quote. You don't see life the way it is. You see life the way you are. Let me say that again. You don't see life the way it is. You see life the way you are. Your beliefs, and I haven't really touched on limiting beliefs, but limiting beliefs can do the same things essentially, but trauma and limiting beliefs are different. They can come from the same source, but they are different. They require different processes. But I'm going to stick to what I was saying. So you don't see things the way they are. You see things the way you are. You see life through the filters of your beliefs and your unhealed trauma. Also your biases, your memories, everything, your values, through everything. So when you can start to be conscious of the mirror of life, and when you get triggered, when you project onto people, when you don't like people, when you get angry about things, whenever you have emotional resistance, there's a quote that I love. The resistance you're avoiding is what's keeping you stuck. It's really nice, isn't it? The resistance that you're avoiding is what's keeping you stuck. So whatever you have emotional resistance to, you project onto others. You don't like others. You get triggered by certain things. All of those things, I'm going to call it a reflection moment just to keep it easier. Whenever you have a reflection moment where you get triggered, you project, you get angry, whatever happens, that reflection moment is a reflection of you. It's revealing a trauma, a wound, a limitation, a limiting belief within you that you haven't addressed yet. And so to answer the first question of the topic of this podcast, how do you find your trauma? Best place to start is your triggers. It's your projections. It's the people that you don't like. I normally use parents. So I do live videos quite frequently on my social media, and I'll normally do this exercise because it's really potent. We might do it. We'll do it quick. Actually, let's do it right now. Wasn't going to, but we're going to now. I want you to think of your dad or whoever played the father figure role for you. Now, don't judge yourself for the answers. Don't judge yourself for answering this question. Just do it authentically, because you'll see how it all links together in a moment. Now, even if you didn't have a father growing up or a mother growing up, still just answer the questions with whoever played that role for you intuitively. Think of your dad, think of father. Using one-word answers, what's the one thing you dislike most about this person? Another way you can ask the question, what's the one thing that triggers you most about this person? Or what's the one thing you wish could change about this person? And look for one-word answers. And I want you to come up with 3 one-word answers for dad. And once you're done, if you need to pause the video or podcast. And once you're done your 3, do it again for mum. What's the one thing you dislike most about mum? What's the one thing you wish could change about mum? What's the one thing that triggers you most about mum? One-word answers, and they will be traits and behaviors. And once you come up with your list of words, have a look at those words. Pause the video if you need more time. But look at the words you came up with. These words are wounds of yours. They're things that trigger you. They're things that you attract into your life. And remember that we started the podcast with this: trauma, coping mechanisms, and triggers. So trauma, those words are traumas of yours, wounds of yours. You'll have coping mechanisms that you create because of them. And when you perceive someone or something that reminds you of the trauma, it will trigger you into a coping mechanism. So think of those words. When someone does these things to you, or you see someone do these things, these traits, these behaviors, it triggers you. Interesting. It gets really deep, so I'm just conscious of how deep to take this. Those words that you came up with, the thing that you didn't like in that random person you thought of, or your parents, or all of the words. These words are things that you don't love about yourself. So you try to be the opposite of these things. If you had pain around dishonesty, you try to be honest. If you had pain around rejection, you try to be accepting, or whatever the opposite word is to you. Common one for rejection is people pleasing. Rejection, abandonment, judgment, that's a common one for people pleasers. So I don't get rejected or abandoned or judged. I'm going to put everyone else's needs ahead of my own and be a people pleaser. That was me for a long time. Now, if you have those wounds, I might be speaking a little bit close to home to you right now, right? Why? Because I've done this stuff. I've been doing this for a while, and I used to be that person. So the reason I'm sort of dancing in this topic with you right now is to help you become aware. Become aware of the mirror of life. Life is just a mirror. It's absolutely true. So when you can become conscious or become more conscious of the mirror of life, of your projections, of your triggers, of your reflections, it gifts you the awareness of what you can do to then go heal. Because once you heal through those wounds, through those triggers, guess what? The triggers and the coping mechanisms and the traumas are gone. They're healed. So now you're less triggered. You're more authentic. You're more yourself. You're more peaceful. You're more relaxed. You're more grateful. All of these things. You're healthier. I've had so many beautiful transformational experiences with my clients where they look 10 years younger. Their digestive system starts working again. Their eyesight gets better. A pain in their back goes away. The mucus in their chest, their asthma goes away. It's fucking insane, the healing to happen once you heal it. It's pretty crazy. So that's kind of the first point of this conversation. How do you become aware, or how do you find your trauma? Wait till you get triggered. That's the best way to start. Or also projections. Think of people you don't like. Now, the more work that you do, the more subtle it becomes. Because I'm a human too, I still have it. So an example that I use quite frequently now is I train at a gym. I love training at the gym. So when I go to the gym and out in public in general, like sometimes, when you walk into a room, say there's a group of people, and there's some people that you just gravitate away from. Why? That's resistance. Remember, emotional resistance. The resistance you avoid is what's keeping you stuck. So if I was to hold myself accountable, and I did this exact process, the gym I trained at, there was this like really geeky, nerdy person at the gym. And I used to be repelled by him. I would literally walk into the gym and be repelled by him. I'd just go to the other side of the gym to train. He's not doing anything bad. He's not doing anything wrong. I energetically was repelled by this person. But I know my work, and I had to take my own medicine for a moment. And I took a breath in. What is it about this person that I don't like? What's the one-word answer? What's the trait or the behavior about this person that I don't like? What's the answer? Awkward. I was judging this person for being awkward. But guess what? I judged myself for being awkward. That person was the mirror to me. The projection. So then I did a healing process on the trait of awkward. So I'm going to now transition from how to find your wounds. Again, finding trauma and wounds. Be aware of your projections or the reflection moments. You get triggered, you judge someone, you don't like something. So wherever you have emotional resistance, zoom into it, be conscious of it, and ask yourself, you want to find the trait or behavior, just to close this loop off, you want to find the trait or behavior that you have emotional resistance to. What did your partner do? So you get triggered the most, by the way, in relationships and parenting, kids. They're the most, from my experience anyways, I'm not a parent yet, but from what I know about parenting and kids do it a lot, but relationships definitely, because they see the depths to you that most people don't see. Because you see me through a screen right now. You might have come see me at an event. Who knows? We might have spoken online before. But you don't see me to the depths that my wife does. When we've had an argument. When we've triggered each other. When the dog's taken a shit on the carpet. When we've had financial stress. All those things, right? You haven't seen those depths to me compared to my wife. Now, I've cried on camera openly, authentically, and I've shed tears at events. I try to be pretty vulnerable and authentic. But the real depths of me get seen and loved by my wife. So that's why your relationship is going to trigger you the most, because they just see more sides to you. As long as you're in a loving-ish, conscious relationship, that is. And the second is kids. From what I know, I'm not a parent yet, but from what I know, kids. So if you can just become aware of when you get triggered, when you judge others, you project onto others, or you have those reflection moments, And then ask yourself these questions. What's the one thing that I dislike most about this person? What is this person doing, or who is this person being that I don't like? And you're going to find a one-word answer to answer it. Are they being mean, controlling, manipulating, dictating, suppressing, manipulating? Just coming up with one-word answers. You're going to find the one-word answers. And just to give you a bit of a reality check, there are 4,628 traits that human beings can display. There's a lot. And whatever ones you think are bad, you get triggered by. You also attract them into your life. You judge yourself for them. You try to be the opposite of these things. And you have coping mechanisms. It gets real deep from there. I'm not going to go any further now because I'll probably lose a lot of you. It gets real deep. So I hope that helped. Next point. How do you heal it? That's actually an easier point. Okay, simpler, not always easy. The hardest part is finding it. Once you find it, oh fuck, I have a wound around rejection. I have a wound around abandonment. I have a wound around lying. I have a wound around dismissed. Whatever the word is, whatever the trait is, whatever the behavior is, I have a wound around that. I get triggered by that. That makes sense. Now what? You need to do a healing process on it. So this is a big can of worms, so I'm trying to give you like a condensed version of it. There's 5 bodies to heal through. There's the mental body, which is beliefs, perceptions, memories, the unconscious, subconscious mind. There's the physical body, that is somatics. So somatic work, where you're actually using the body. Soma means body. So body work. Third is the emotional body. That's your nervous system and suppressed emotions. If you've suppressed your emotions or your nervous system is very dysregulated, you probably have some nervous system work to work on. Fourth is the spiritual body. That is your level of connectedness, oneness with God, source, divine, presence, stillness, connectiveness. Your level of connectedness to oneness, source, God, divine order, call it what you want. Fifth body is the energetic body. That's when you're using things like the meridians of the body, your aura and biofield of your body. That's the one that I don't do too much work on. That's the one that I don't really touch too much with the work, a little bit with my meditations, but not too much. So there's 5 bodies to heal from. I use this quote from Bruce Lee quite frequently. He says, "There's no ultimate martial art, only the ultimate martial artist, who knows every martial art and knows when to pull from the right one at the right time to get the right result." I see that a lot with healing. There's no ultimate way to heal. It's knowing all ways to heal and using the right one at the right time to get the right result. And I right now have tried 21 processes or modalities as a client, and I've been trained in 9. And I am on a bit of a quest, you might say, or a journey to become, quote, the ultimate martial artist when it comes to healing, transformation. So to answer the question, what's the best tool to now heal through? It depends. It depends. It gets a little bit challenging. I'm in the coaching space, so I know a lot of coaches, I know a lot of facilitators, and I know a lot of the modalities out there. This is the challenge that I want you guys to sit with. If you're holding a hammer, everything looks like a nail. There's a lot of people who either do self-development as a client or even teach healing as like a coach or a facilitator or a healer, where the one thing that they tried that worked to start with is what they use for everything. I'm a breathwork facilitator. That's one of the tools I've been trained on. I'll list mine out for you if you're wondering. NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, I've done that twice. I've done hypnotherapy twice, timeline therapy twice, negative emotional release techniques twice. I'm a DeMartini facilitator. That's probably my favorite one out of all of them. I'm a breathwork facilitator. I have done holographics, which gets super deep. Love holographics. I've done level 1, level 2 of that. I've done neuro-linguistic coaching. So it's like NLP, but specifically for coaching. And I've done, I'm forgetting one, nervous system informed certificate. So it's like around the nervous system and trauma and how to navigate that. So those are the 9 that I've been, quote, certified in that have a certification attached to it. And I've done tens of thousands of hours of learning and practicing. I've coached 5,500 people, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. I've done a lot of processes. There's no ultimate way to heal. It depends which one's going to help you the most. If I was to project my biases and what I think is most powerful, the 3 processes I do most commonly, I do more because I've got more in my toolkit, but the ones I use the most is my limiting belief process, where I actually integrate emotional bodies into it. So those 5 bodies I mentioned before, My processes, for anyone that's done a process with me before, I love you. Thank you for doing a process with me. If anyone's done a process with me, you'll notice that I actually integrate multiple bodies into the same process. So we can tackle all angles, holistically transform you. So we don't just intellectually help you, because if you're someone who's done quote talk therapy for a long time, a lot of people who do talk therapy who don't close the loop off or touch the other bodies keep repeating the same patterns. Maybe that hit home for you, right? So I like to actually integrate multiple bodies and processes into the one process. That's the ultimate martial artist, right? I'm pulling from different modalities to put them into one beautiful, incredible experience. So my top 3, just to sort of wrap this up, is my limiting belief process. I call it my ego dissolving process. The second is my balancing process. That's my trauma process. That's the one I would use specifically for this conversation that we're talking about, is find the trait that you think is bad. That's what trauma is. And then you do my balancing process on that trait. By the time you're finished that process, you will have no resistance towards that trait. Big fucking claim, and it works every time if you're willing to do it. Drag a horse to water, can't make a drink. My third one is meditations. Very much Joe Dispenza. For anyone that knows Dr. Joe Dispenza, he's one of my favorite mentors I've ever learned from. So I've created my own meditations based on the way that he teaches meditations and uses them. And again, I integrate other things into it as well, which is really nice. So to wrap that up, to summarize this entire podcast, for you to find your trauma and your wounds, be conscious of when you get triggered, or when you have projections or reflection moments in life. Wherever you have emotional resistance, zoom in on it, be conscious of it, be aware of it. Underneath there is something for you to work on. Trauma, limiting beliefs, whatever it may be. From there, once you've found it, you then want to use a healing tool to heal that wound. My favorite 3 is my ego dissolving process, my balancing process, and my meditations. And I use breath work, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, NLP. I use all of those tools within those tools. The ultimate martial artist, as I've said a couple of times, I like to integrate them together. To then heal, and once you've done the process, if you've done the process properly, that wound or that trigger will be gone. Then you won't get triggered by the same thing anymore. That wound is healed. Your coping mechanisms will go away, and you're more healed, you're more authentic, you're more loving, you're more healthier, all those things. And you repeat that process indefinitely, because unfortunately, sorry to break it to you, I don't believe anyone's ever fully healed. I don't believe it's not a journey you ever finish. There's always more layers. There's always more triggers. There's always more things to address. And the reason I say that, to wrap this podcast up, is remember what I said at the start. Trauma, coping mechanisms, triggers. A trigger is revealing a trauma or a wound or something. I'm yet to meet a single human being on the planet who's never triggered 100% of the time. You become less triggered. I'm a lot less triggered. I still get triggered. I'm a human being just like you. But I'm probably a 10th as triggered as I used to be when I started my journey over 10 years ago. Consciously started my journey 10 years ago. And I have more to do, more work to do, more layers to go, more depths to journey. I'm a human just like you. And that's why I believe the healing journey is never done. So I hope you got value from this. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. If you got value from this, please share it with a friend, a loved one. I'd love to get my podcast out to more people, because I think there's some fucking awesome content in my podcast. If you'd like to work with me, guys, there's a ton of ways. I run in-person events on the Gold Coast. If you want to come to the Gold Coast, hang out with me. I have a school community where you get all of my tools and processes, my balancing process, my ego dissolving process, all of my tools, my purpose process, everything's there. There's a free 7-day trial, and it comes with a one-on-one call with me. The link is down below. I also have a book. It's called The Inspired Life Method, where I teach you pretty much everything we're talking about. We dive deep into it. So heaps of ways you can work with me. I love you. I appreciate you. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a review. I love you. I appreciate you. And I will see you on the next episode. Speak soon. See ya.